Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share insights on what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fiume, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the founder of Richard's Painting, Richard Gould. How are you today, Richard?
I'm doing great. Just happy to be here. I'm ready to kick this thing off and, tell everybody about how great Richard's Painting is.
Let's do it. Well, first of all, how did you get started in the business?
I've been a mini entrepreneur my whole life, right? As a kid, I was selling candy in school. I would fix people's report cards. I was a DJ. I would shovel driveways, in snow, whatever it took, to try to make some money, So I guess you could say I started back then. But, painting, I got into painting when I was, just 18, 19 years old. And, found over some time that, hey, this could be something that you could, really do well with. So, after I worked for somebody, Don Greer in Princeton, New Jersey, took the business over from him, started my own business, and been doing it ever since.
Wow. So, and you started the company, let's see, way back in 1999. So you did this for quite a while before you even got involved in franchising. Share with us a little bit about your franchise journey. Like when did you decide to do the concept or take the concept and franchise it? Like, what was that turning point for you?
I'll say this, that, I always had this little dream in my head of wanting to be the biggest painting company in the world. I didn't know what the hell that meant, but I thought it, it was in my head. It took really me moving from New Jersey to North Carolina and starting all over again and creating a business that I had no help in, had to start it from ground zero in a whole new area. And after I did that and became, successful in my own right, I said, I think I can help other people do this too. And so, I wanted to grow the business, and franchising seems like a world that you can grow your business, but also have other people who have as much skin in the game or as much, desire to be successful as I do. And so that's when when I looked into franchising and said, hey, maybe this is something that'll work.
So how long ago was that when you first started looking at franchising your company?
Gosh, I think I thought about doing it about 5 years ago, probably 5-6 years ago. And into doing that, what I did was, I wanted to prove to myself, well, am I just really good at this? Am I the greatest painter ever? Or, does it work without me? Right. And so what I did was, I went and started another location. I'm here in Salisbury, North Carolina. So we started another location in Mooresville, North Carolina, Lake Norman area. And, started with, hired somebody to run it as a general manager. And, they went from zero to doing, over $200,000 in sales in the first year. Wow. And I decided, okay, this works without me. And so now I can say, okay, now I can have confidence going into franchising, knowing that, okay, this can work without me so other people can be successful too.
Wow. And so you started franchising in 2020. And if my numbers are right here, you have 23 franchises open. What makes Richard's Painting unique compared to others that are in the industry? There is other painting franchises out there. And how have you been able to achieve the success?
Hard work. That's how, right? Let's just say it, right? It doesn't happen without it.
Right.
The determination to say that I'm going to make this work no matter what, right? You see all these people talk about success and all this stuff. The main lever of success is not giving up.
Yes.
Right? Is many people reach a certain point and then they quit because they think they can't get any further. They don't want to suffer. They don't want to go through tough times to get to the success, right? Success doesn't come without all that. So, at the very beginning, when I first started, going from one location to two, then you go to three, and you're like, oh my God, I don't think it's ever going to happen. I don't think I'm ever going to get to five.
Right.
Right. And so, and you get to five, and you 7, 9, 10, 12, 15. And then you start to say, wow, this might work, right?
Right.
And so, I wasn't very, intelligent in the way of understanding franchising, right? I didn't know how it worked, didn't know, I think many people, this is a great, your podcast is a great thing because you can understand that everybody goes through a different journey in franchising, right? Nobody, there's some people who right away they're gonna, hook up with an FSO and they're gonna, light the world on fire. Other people like myself are gonna say, well, I'm gonna do it my way. I'm gonna figure out a different way to do it and try to cultivate a program that works really well for me. And there's all different levels of success. I don't even feel successful, to be honest with you. Like I feel like I'm struggling, especially when you compare yourself to these people who are out there selling 100 locations in, 30 days and you feel like I suck, right?
No.
But that's the mentality, right? Because you have to look to other things and say, okay, where do I need to improve? Where do I need to get better? Do I want to be that? No. Do I want to open up 100 locations in 6 months? Absolutely not.
Right.
But there are other people who succumb to that I don't know, it's like the effect of having a spell put over you, that their fear of missing out, that people jump and want to buy these locations and buy these locations because they're scared their territory might be gone.
Yeah.
So Richard's Painting is just a simple business, right? It's not complicated. It's not rocket science. We paint, right? Literally every time people call me up and we got a problem, like, we're talking about paint here. This is it. It's all it is, paint. Okay. We can solve this problem. And so, plus I'm not really big on overselling and under delivering. I would rather undersell and over deliver. I do that in our painting business and I do that in a franchise business also. I'm never going to tell somebody that, if you do this for a year, you could be a millionaire, right? Because that's a lie, right? Now, when I say it's a lie based on, hey, if you spend, like, our marketing budgets, people don't believe me, are $750 a month, right? But that generates a sales where you could potentially do, 125,000 to 300,000, depending
Right.
on how much you hustle, right? Eventually, can you build $1 million business? For sure, but it just takes time, building a reputation, building, brand awareness, building a customer base, and eventually you can get there and be really successful. I think about people who, when you look online, LinkedIn, Instagram, the whole world out there, social media, somewhere along the way, people think that if you're not a millionaire, you're not successful, right? Like
Mm.
if you're not doing millions of dollars in sales, well, you're terrible. You suck, right? And you hear this from people who are out there, promoting themselves and charging thousands and thousands of dollars to come hear them speak. But I think somebody who, let's say you were making 50 or $75,000 a year before, you're surviving, you're getting by, then you can start a business and generate an income of $100,000 to $200,000, even 300,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's success. Last I checked, that's the top 1% of the country,
Absolutely.
right? And so that's what I'm trying to build. I'm trying to build people who, who are just, they want to be more successful than they were before, right? And then if they can build a business that, helps other people, not only themselves, their employees, the people around them, their family, creates a better lifestyle for themselves, to me, that's success. I don't, I'm not buying into this notion that if you don't scale this business from, one location to 20 locations in 6 months, well, you failed, right? I just want people to, if your sales last year were 150,000 and you can go to 200, great, you went forward, right? You go to 250, whatever those numbers are. But, so I really try to keep people grounded, try to make sure that we're, having successful businesses with happy customers. And when you do that, the success follows.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't start this franchise to just generate income from people, right? I didn't just do this to say, well, if I get 1,000 locations, I'm getting 6% and I'm going to make this much money and this is great. I just assume that, well, if I build a really good business and have really good people, I'm going to make money, right? It's going to work out, and so that's my philosophy. I don't know if it's current with many other people's philosophy, but I just want to have happy people, right? Whether it's happy franchisees, happy
Mm-hmm.
customers. I wish I could make my wife that happy all the time, but that's harder to do, because I'm just an asshole. But if I could get past that, I'd be really good.
Well, Richard, you've taken here in the last few moments, you've taken the complications of business and have simplified it, is what you just did. And I'm curious that what you've kind of proven to me, my point is that I think that the number one trait that anybody needs to be successful in business is to be hungry. And you clearly have had that hunger from the time you started. What do you think the genesis of that is? What has made you different? Because that's the reason why so many entrepreneurs fail, is they don't really have that hunger and that drive. You've always had that. Where does that come from, you think?
You ever been broke? You ever been
Absolutely.
homeless?
That's
You ever
yeah,
been
not
homeless?
homeless, but broke. Absolutely.
You ever see your family struggle and never seem to figure out a way to get out of it?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll tell you a quick story. When I was younger, you live this way, right? And you think it's normal, right? And then you get older and you go away, and then all of a sudden you go back to see your family, after not seeing them for 2 years, and you show up, and my instant feeling was, oh, I don't want to end up like this. This is not how it's going to go for me, right? Like I don't want to see that happen. And so I think, the hunger comes from, you have to have a desire to want to be better and want to improve your life and try to, but at the same time, you got to put the work in. Being a parent, right? Like I have kids, and I struggle really, really mightily to try to figure out, well, what's the balance between making sure that they're working hard, have a desire to want to do more, but also they're living way better than I did, right? And they didn't have to think about, well, maybe if I earn enough money, I can actually help buy food for my family, right? Their problems were, I don't really like this kind of chicken nugget. You don't like this
Mm-hmm.
chicken nugget? Oh, my bad. Sorry. How about we just don't eat it all? Right. And so so it's the same thing in family business, right? How do you get that structure of, the balance of, but that's the truth is, you have to, I think most of the successful people, no matter where they were, there was a lot of struggle, right? And
Yeah.
and so I think that's what makes you hungry. And I'm not going to say you can come from a successful family and still have that same hunger. I'm not saying, as long as, those things are taught to you, but nowadays I see so many people who just want the easy way. They don't really, really want to put the work in. They want the thing that's, hey, I'm gonna create this really quick business model, and I'm just gonna make a lot of money. But there's nothing there to fight for, because they don't even know what struggle means. And as soon as struggle comes, they quit, they give up, right? And so I used to keep this picture on my wall. It was a cartoon of a guy who's chipping through the through the boulder, through the cave, and just keep chipping away, keep chipping away, and then it would be, he gets to almost the outside of that wall, and he turns around and goes the other way, right? My personal being says, I'm willing to fail to succeed. I'm willing to lose it all to say, at least I tried, right? I don't want to look back when I'm, 70 years old and say, man, I wish I would have tried this. I wish I would have tried that. And I'm not perfect at everything. By the way, I screw up a lot, right? I make bad decisions. I do things that maybe I shouldn't do. My wife tells me I'm entirely too nice, to everybody, right? But for me, I'm trying to give people the benefit of the doubt, right? There's so much, I have so many franchisees when we first started where, they couldn't even balance their own checkbook, right? And I'm not you, that's the truth. And so just to get them over that hump of, hey, you got to work your finances like this, you got to do this, you got to do that. And to see those people go from not being able to do that to now, getting more successful and actually knowing how to run that business is so gratifying, right? And so there's so much to this. I mean, franchising, FYI, is hard,
Mm-hmm.
right? Franchising is probably one of the most difficult business models to get into, um, because you're taking people who don't necessarily want, don't know how to start a business on their own. So they're looking for help, so their mindset is not like me. Like, would I ever buy a franchise? Probably never, right? Because I don't want to be bound by that, the rules and the regulations. I want to do my own thing.
Sure. You,
But you
you and
need
I would be
many.
you and I would be terrible
Oh,
franchisees.
I'd be the worst,
Yeah.
right? And I know that about myself.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there's many franchisees who don't know that about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They go and they want to start a franchise, and the first thing they do is say, well, can I do it this way? Well, I heard from a friend, he said that, well, this doesn't make any sense. You should do it this way. And so that's a hard thing to like overcome,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm getting better at saying, listen, if you want to start George's painting, go ahead. Like, nobody's stopping you, right? But this is Richard's painting, and this is how we do it, and what I tell everybody is, listen, if we go down this road and what I tell you to do, or well, our system doesn't work, then I'm open to suggestions. I will do whatever's necessary to make it better for you. But until that happens, let's do it my way.
Very
Right.
reasonable.
And and it's not, hard. I mean, gosh, I think the hardest things for me are, sometimes I'll see a picture of somebody and they don't have white pants on. Right. And it like shakes me to my core. Right. Because it's the basics. Right. It's
Right.
like, I would joke around and say, hey, look, you ever go to McDonald's and see somebody not wearing the uniform?
No.
Yeah. You know why? Because they would be fired or they wouldn't be there anymore.
Right.
Right. And you try, and in our business too, it's like we have this great uniform that signifies what we do, just walking around. Right. Hey, there's a painter. There's a painter.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll talk to him and see if I can get something going. That's, some of the, just doing those things can help you with your business. But if you're not willing to do that, then does that say to me, well, you're not really buying in? You're not really, getting what we're trying to say here. And so this is no, dig on any of my franchisees or anything like that. And the ones who will, if hear this and take it personal, well, I hope they do. Right. And I hope they hear that the most successful franchisees that we have do what we're supposed to do. Right. And do it the right way. Don't make excuses why we didn't do this or why we didn't do that. Right. If you want to be successful, follow the plan. Right. It's not rocket science. Right. And this is anything, whether you're in fitness or ice cream or painting. I mean, we don't have a storefront, right? So our businesses are home based mostly.
Sure.
So you have a lot of flexibility, right? We have, I mean, we have vans, we have, the way we do our business. I give people lots of leeway to be the best they can be, but there's got to be the core stuff that you do just to, and I'm going to tell you this story because, why not? Like, I tell everybody the same story because one of our first franchisees here was my first employee here in North Carolina. Okay. When I first moved here, I was wearing my Richard's painting shirt. Actually, I used to say Nassau painting because in New Jersey, that's what it was. So anyway, I'm walking the Lowe's parking lot. A kid stops me and says, hey, are you hiring? And this kid's probably 7 or 8 years old. And at the moment, I was like, nah, I'm not really hiring. His dad's over there. I go see it. I go over there, try to talk to him. And I said, hey, I'm not hiring right now, but give me your phone number. And as soon as I start to get busier, I'll give you a call. Well, a year later, I'm finally to the point where I'm like, all right, I need some help. I call him up, Miguel, and I call up and I said, hey, what's going on? And I said, hey, this is Richard. They're like, who? I'm like, remember the guy you met at the parking lot? Okay. He said, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. So Miguel comes and works for me for a little bit back and forth. He's working for another company. Finally convinced him to work for me, full time. Ends up working for me for over 10 years and became our second franchisee. And now, they're going to do probably over $700,000 in sales this year.
Wow.
In their third year. And so, but the reason I'm telling you the story is because if I wasn't wearing these clothes, they would have never stopped me that day.
Mm.
Right. And it's the essence of what we are, right? Like if you're out there and people see you, you have such a higher rate of success, right? You're putting yourself in position to be successful. Anyway, I just love that story because it summarizes life really, but in our business, it just catapults you above everybody else.
Sure. How do you ensure consistency and quality across your franchise locations?
That's a question, right? All you can do is try to get the right people to do the right things.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody's perfect in our situation. But many people many of our franchisees have never painted before in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They wouldn't know up or down, left or right. If they do come here for training, we get the basics. But the best way we learn and we teach everybody is just get out there and do it. And if it's wrong, fix it. If it needs to be better, do it better next time. Right. And so what Richard's painting is really about, yes, consistency in painting is great, but it's really about the experience. And when that customer feels like you did everything you could for them and you really are going above and beyond and trying, no matter what it takes, you make it right, they're always going to want to work with you, recommend you, call you back again. So do you have to be the perfect painter? No. You just have to be the best person, right? And that's really what it comes down to is just good quality people. So when I talk about earlier about, some franchisees maybe not being perfect or doing this wrong or maybe doing that wrong. The one thing that everybody does right here is they represent themselves and us in the best possible way.
Mm.
Right. And so that's what really makes them successful. Because even myself, when I first started painting, I remember this vividly. We went to a house, we painted this whole entire interior of a house, and I left there and I thought, man, we're good. This is great. This is really good. I was really proud of myself. And so we went back to that house maybe 5 years later to do something else. And so I went and toured my great work and went around and looked, and I'm gonna tell you the truth, it was terrible.
Oh.
It was, to the 5 years later, it was terrible, right?
Hmm.
But the customer was super happy, would never know the difference. It didn't matter, right? So being really good at painting just takes time, right? You just have to get more experience and try to get better and better. We have, certain paints, and we use the best kind of paint we can. Techniques are vary for every situation, but it's providing that experience of what Richard's painting is all about. And so, I don't think being the best painter ever makes you a great business owner.
Right.
Just being a great person is going to really make that business successful.
Well, Richard, let's elaborate a little bit on the training. How much of your training is like hands-on, teaching them technique of painting versus the actual business of a painting company?
I would say the actual painting is minimal, right?
Hmm.
It's because it takes years to be good at painting, right? It takes you years to be really good at it. So, but we'll give you the basics. Everybody comes for a week's of training when their initial training. But I would say 80% of that is the business, right? The business is the most important. The
Right.
marketing of your business is very important, right? The actual work, believe it or not, is kind of fourth or fifth on the list. It's just because you got to get the phone calls first. You got to get the leads first. You got to sell the job next. Then you can worry about doing it, right? And so there's so many aspects that happen before you even get the job that are really vital. So I'll put it this way. We have had very minimal issues with quality or people not being satisfied with paint. And if we ever had an issue like that, we just, the franchisee, we just work to say, hey, go fix it,
Yeah, it's
right?
easy to
Make it
fix.
happen, take care of it. That's all you got to do. And
Right.
everybody's happy. And so that's all we could ever do. I'm not going to sit here and say that we're perfect. Gosh, that's just, terrible. There's many other companies out there who offer these lifetime guarantees, 5-year guarantee, 10-year guarantee. I mean, the paint doesn't even last that long.
Right.
So what we guarantee is that we will always do the best job possible. And if there's ever a problem, we'll come back and fix it. Right. I don't know if you can have a better guarantee. And so, it's not like we're going to say, oh, well, after 3 years, good luck. Oh, too bad. We want to, we always tell our customers, listen, especially if they're a new customer and your location just getting started, is you're going to tell them, listen, we're going to do the best job possible because we want you to hire us back again next time.
Right.
I'm pretty sure if we do a job, you're not going to hire us back.
Right.
So our
True.
goal is to do the best job possible here. And, and we want you to hire us back again. So I think when you kind of have that attitude and kind of explain it to people that way, those are things that are going to set you apart from everybody else.
Hmm.
I mean, you could be a great salesperson and, convince people to do things that they don't need to do, or convince people of things that are not necessary. We really try to be really open and honest with our customers. And sometimes, I'll tell people maybe that doesn't need to be painted right now. Maybe you could do this or do that, and try to really make the customer understand that we're here to help them, not necessarily just charge them to paint. And in our estimating process, what we do a lot of is understanding people's budgets are not all the same. So when we have a way of, say somebody wants to paint the whole entire interior of their house. Most people are usually very unrealistic of what they think it costs to paint the entire inside of their house. Let's just say a basic 2,500 square foot house. On average, it's going to cost between $10,000 and $12,000 to paint that house
Mm.
interior. I'm pretty sure they were thinking it was going to cost five, right?
Right.
And so what we do is we say, okay, listen, what we can do is we can give you a price on just painting the walls. We can paint the ceilings and walls, maybe just the walls and trim. And then you can kind of work with what your budget is to get the most out of it. And so we don't just try to oversell them, and we really try to work within their budgets and try to come up with a plan that will help them out. But at the end of the day, painting is very price sensitive, especially depending on the market, right? I see people all the time talking about how you have to have a perfect pricing plan structure. I don't know, it's bullshit, to be honest,
Hmm.
because, most of the time you have to figure out really what that customer is willing to pay, right? What is that customer, do they have in their mind, right? Because if you have ABC price all the time and say, well, kitchen cabinets, every single one is $3,000. Well, that's okay, right? But we find out there's people out there doing it for $1,200, right? And so even if you said three, you're still, it's a problem. So what we do for our franchisees is at the beginning, we actually use pricing as a marketing tool, right?
Okay.
Where if you're going to price these jobs a little bit more competitive at the beginning, and then you start to get the sign out front, you start to do jobs, people start to see you. And as you get busier and busier, then we can kind of get our prices back, where they need to be. And then once you become so busy, you can then become the most expensive painter in the area, and people will hire you based on your reputation. And so,
True.
answer your question, it's 80% business, 20% painting, because, that's what it's about. Anybody can get out there and paint, but can you run the business to be successful? That's what the difference is.
What are some of the traits of an ideal franchise owner?
Like you said earlier, I think being hungry, right?
Sure.
That's always a big, part of it.
Which is hard to
Uh,
measure, by the way, when you first meet somebody, right? Especially you go through the discovery day process and everybody seems like a great candidate because everybody's on their best behavior like they are in a job interview. And so hunger is like one of those really tough things to gauge. You could use an assessment behavioral tool like a predictive index or culture index and or DISC and kind of get a flavor for how the person is. But measuring some of these things is real difficult. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree, but I'll be honest, Frank, I don't get enough candidates to be that picky. So
Okay.
we, if I start to get 100 candidates a week, I'm going to worry about that problem when it happens, and I'll select the best one.
Fair enough. So, but
But
who is that
but
ideal owner for you?
but currently, somebody who has enough money
Hmm.
first. No, I'm just joking. Um, but the truth is really, just good quality people, right? That's really what I look for. I look for people who are, looking to they really buy into the part of, the experience, right? Of what we're trying to provide to people. And they really are not just focused on, well, how much money are we going to make, right? Or, can we do commercial work? Can we do, they start to add, a lot of times they start to ask questions that the answer is not the one that they want to hear from me.
Hmm.
And so I always let them know. I say, listen, I feel sounds to me like you might be better off with a different type of franchise because that's probably going to be better for you. That fits more of your thought process. Ours is different. And so um I really try to truly just get people I really feel have the right attitude. That's it, right?
Yeah.
They just want to have a better life. And I think those are the ones that we've had the most success with.
Do you have an expectation for a franchise owner to be operating the business, or can it be manager operated? How involved do they need to
I
be?
I think obviously always when the owner runs the business, it's better, right?
Hmm.
There's no doubt about that. But I also will say we have different people doing different things. And what I try to explain to people is we can do anything the way you want to do it, but the expectations have to be realistic, right? Like if you are going to run this business yourself and do this full time, well, then obviously the amount of money you're going to be able to make is going to be better, right? But
Right.
if you go out and hire a manager and you got to hire another person in the office and you're going to hire a salesperson, it's going to be a while before you make any money,
Yeah. Can,
right?
can you
And as
share
long
any?
as,
Can you share an example maybe of a franchisee that exceeded your expectations, and what do they do to achieve this success?
yeah, I mean, uh, again, Miguel, who is the first employee. They're in Lexington, North Carolina.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody listening out there, just imagine nowhere, right? Okay. That's what you can imagine. Okay. And so they have, in a short period of time, really, really built a very, very good business, right? And if they had a little bit more people, they could be over $1 million, in a couple years.
What did Miguel and his team do that made it different?
They do everything that they're asked of, right? When they first started, they put out over 200 signs, right? They put out over 10,000 door hangers, right? When things would slow down, they didn't just sit there and look at their phone and say, "Oh my God, nobody called." right? They went out and made things happen.
So
They, you
they
know,
pounded the pavement and made sure they did
they
all
made
the
it
marketing.
happen.
Yeah.
They did everything that I asked them to do.
Hmm.
You know, whether it's, you know, getting, you know, one of our big things is getting relationships with like a contractor, not like a general contractor, but like home remodeling contractor, roofing contractors, interior decorators.
Hmm.
And so what that does for them, if you can get these relationships and start to generate some work that you don't have to work so hard for, you know, makes the regular estimates simpler. Because what happens at the beginning, many franchisees we have want to get every job they go look at,
Hmm.
right? Every time. They want everyone. And you know, for me, I try to tell them like maybe you really don't, right? Like,
Hmm.
you know, this morning, a location just opened up in South Carolina. They're giving painting kitchen cabinets $2,500. The customer sent them a list of questions, 19 questions. So he says, "How do I answer these?" I wrote back, "Run. That's what you should do. Run." If they have this many questions about painting kitchen cabinets, I would be very worried,
Mm.
right? Because to me, it's telling me no matter what you do, they're never going to be happy. You
There's
could be
gonna,
perfect,
right. Yeah.
right? It's going to be an issue. So I have this, you know, we say this all the time. I can stay home and not make any money. I certainly don't want to go work for it,
Right.
right? And so you're better off sometimes not taking that job, you know, even if you think you really want it because of all the problems that are come with it. And so that's something that our franchisees, even though you tell them these things, until they experience the negativity and all those things, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I get it. Now, when I go do the estimate and they say, oh, we're looking for someone to do a really good job. No, right? But you know what that really means?
Hmm.
Is that they were looking for somebody to do a really good job for no money, right?
Mm.
Or they'll say, hey, oh, we called 5 or 6 people and nobody called us back. You know what that really means? They called 5 or 6 people and they didn't like those prices. So they're hoping yours is going to be cheaper, right?
Right.
And so when you start to pick up on these small little things, you can eliminate your problems from the beginning, right? Many people will call up and say this job, you know, oh, this job is the customer this, the customer that. And I say, all right, let's back up to the beginning. You know, let's go back to the estimate because that's where it went wrong. I'll
Mhm.
say, did they ask you anything peculiar or talk about anything peculiar? And a lot of times say, oh, they did say they had to fire their last contractor. And I'm like, that's a warning sign.
Mm.
How many people, why they have to fire them? Were the contractors so bad or were they so bad? Right? And so there's things that people tell you that are giving you the signs to say, you don't want to work here. This
Hmm.
is not for you. You know, but you go past that because you think you need that job. And what I instruct every franchise every single time is, has the phone been ringing since you started? Yes. Have you gotten jobs? Yes. Do you think you'll never get another phone call? Do you think you'll never get another job? No, you will. You just don't need this one. And so, you know, so much of what we do sometimes is just being, you know, keep it simple. Just try to eliminate your problems before they are,
Hmm.
and then it makes the jobs much more fun and usually way more profitable. You know, so there's nothing like, you know, our training process is yes, initial training, but the real training and guidance is as they do it, right? And as they get those first jobs, as they do those first estimates, and as we walk through all the steps and all the things that are happening and trying to make the best decisions as you go, that's where I think we are the most successful.
Awesome. That's great. What's the investment range of the franchise? And obviously, this is territory based. How big is the territory?
Great. So, I think our on our FDD, I think it says somewhere between 60,000 and 105,000
Hmm.
is our investment range. You know, most people don't spend over $100,000, I can tell you that. But they could if they bought a brand new vehicle. But anyway,
Okay.
so um, most of I haven't had any franchisees buy a brand new vehicle because it's way over the top. You don't need a $50,000 van to go paint.
Hmm.
You know, all we need is a nice used $15,000 to $20,000 van that we can just put Richard's Painting on the side with the phone number. We're good to go.
And how big is the territory?
Yeah, average our typical territories are like a 10-mile radius, and the numbers are anywhere from, you know, usually 100,000 to 250,000 is our population range. That's the
Okay.
word.
Yeah.
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 And so, you know, that's pretty typical, but you know, also you have places that are like, you know, Atlanta, Austin, Texas, Dallas, Texas, where, you know, 12 feet, there's a million people, right? And so, So a lot of times, what we're doing, what we just started doing are some locations where it goes over, like, let's say you're going to have 400,000 people, we're just going to make that we're not necessarily going to call it two territories. We're going to call it something else and try to, because you can't give somebody a 3 mile radius territory. It's kind of not fair.
Sure.
And so you got to be fair to everybody in the system, right? Because, some people might have 125,000 people, some have 250,000. So, what I try to do is really try to cultivate the territory that fits around them, right? We don't really necessarily have dedicated territories already.
Hmm.
Like, I really like to take where people live and say, how do I create this territory around where they live? And try to, make that work. And so that's how our territories work, because our business, what really makes us stand out amongst all the other painting franchises is that we work in not only large territories, we can work in small territories. We can be, in the middle of what other people will call nowhere and be really successful. Where, the other models are designed to be around big populations and big cities and all those kind of things. We can work in both. And
Hmm.
so I think that's where our strength is, and that's what's going to, over time, make us probably one of the largest franchises in the country, because we go where nobody else goes. And
Yeah.
so, but we can also be in the big cities too. So I think we have a niche there that once people, understand who we are and what we're about, and as we grow, I think those things are things that, are going to help set us apart.
Yeah, Richard, there's something to be said about being off the radar in terms of with competition and going into markets that other people aren't going. And that's
Yep.
obviously been a key to the success of your brand.
No, I mean, yeah, I love it. I love being, I guess somebody's gonna be starting a franchise in Dublin, Georgia. I mean, Dublin, Georgia. Okay, right? And no, why, right? But the truth is, I will guarantee he will be really successful, because there's, not a huge demand, right, for any other type of, nobody's going to Dublin, Georgia to start a business.
Right.
He just happens to live there, right? And so, but my point is like, it gets me excited to see that, because I know if we got all the smaller markets covered and then the bigger ones come in, as we go, the success is, my goal is to cover, every square inch of every state, right? Not just the most populated areas.
Since you've been franchising now for 4 years, what's been your biggest surprise so far?
How hard it is to sell what I do. That's the truth, right? Like, you're asking me, and I'm telling you, because our business model is designed around employees, right? And I think there's a negative connotation in painting. Like, if you were to talk to many people who are looking for a franchise, and let's say it is in painting, and when I mention we use employees, I think it scares people, because they're like, well, I don't know how to paint, right? What am I going to do? Compared to most of the other models, all require a subcontractor model. And so with the relief of the business owner for the subcontractor model is, oh, well, those guys know how to paint already. I don't have to worry about it. While that's partially true, at the same time, you don't know if they really do or don't.
Hmm.
And so what ends up happening with many of those other franchises is that they have a real problem with quality control and customer service and the jobs being done correctly. Unlike us, where, yeah, we're going to hire an employee, who has some painting experience, and yes, but we're here to help you with those jobs too. We're actually, we're gonna, before they start jobs, especially the first year, almost every job that a franchisee starts, we talk about, right? Like, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Is this right? Is this wrong? And so we actually are building really strong businesses from the bottom up,
Hmm.
right? And so, but in conversations with potential franchisees, I can tell in their voice, they're scared of painting. They're scared of it. They want a business that may be successful in painting, but they don't want to paint. And my thing is, well, if you don't like painting that much, maybe this isn't the right business for you,
Right.
right? I want somebody who, you don't have to love to paint, but you have to say, I want to love to make people happy, right? I want to love to really build a business. Yes, it's painting, but I want to understand it. I want to know how to get better at it. I want to keep improving. And those are people who can be successful. But, so, as I joked earlier about, I don't have enough candidates because of the way our business is set up. While it's the most successful profit margin wise of most of the painting franchises out there, it's also very scary to somebody who's going to start a business and never had a business before, especially painting. So, we are growing slower just because, I got to keep getting the right people, the right
Sure.
people, the right people. I don't have somebody who just comes in, has like, they're working a corporate job and they're going to start a business. They want to be like an executive. They don't want to, be a painter, right? And
Yep.
so, and I understand that, right? I'm not oblivious to the fact. And so I just say to myself, well, it's just going to take a little bit longer, right? But I know eventually, once the success reaches the level where the person who used to be scared about the painting is going to say, well, it can't be that bad.
Hmm.
All these people are pretty successful, so maybe it's something I should look at, right? But for the current environment, I just think it's, a lot of people are selling executive painting franchises,
Yeah.
right? And so we're not executive model really yet.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean, we are, right? If you really think about what we do, we are, but it's, you got to put a little bit of sweat equity in first
Sure. And
to get there.
yeah, and you haven't been afraid to do that at all yourself personally. Richard, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about kind of the vision in the future. Heck, the name of the company's got, your name on it. Clearly this is a legacy business for you. Do you plan on doing this for life? Do you have an exit strategy? What are your thoughts on that long term for the company?
That's a great question. I mean, I love what I do, right? I love painting.
Clearly.
Okay. I do. And it's Richard's, and I'm just going to tell you the backstory of Richard's painting. It wasn't for an ego thing. Okay. The truth is, when I was in New Jersey, our business was Nassau Painting Company.
Okay.
And when I moved here to North Carolina, nobody knew what the heck Nassau painting was. They'd be like, hey, is that from Nassau, Bahamas? Is that Nassau, Long Island? Right. And so there's a disconnect. And so I decided just to change it to my name because I thought, Richard he could have been here for 20 years. Who knows?
Right.
Right. And so I just changed it to Richard's Painting. It just happens to be my name. And I did and then even at the beginning, when I first started franchising, I used to say, maybe I need to change the name.
Mm.
Maybe I need to be just all done painting or, got it done painting, whatever it might be. Right. I kept saying, you know what? It's my name, I know, but Richard just seems familiar, right? And when people see it,
Yeah.
it automatically has a sense of, okay, we know who that is. And so I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to keep it and leave it that way. And just, in many businesses, I joke around like, McDonald's was a name, right?
Right.
It was their name. It wasn't, this great, thing. Marriott, right? I mean,
Mhm.
their name. And so mine just happens to be Richard. The only thing that thinks about Richard is you can't trademark the name Richard.
Yeah.
But, that's okay. But, the future, I mean, I truly believe that over time, Richard's painting will be maybe, I don't know about the biggest, but I will say the best, right? We're going to be the best painting franchise available. And for the reasons I've talked about up to this point,
Mhm.
right? We look at things differently. I personally value people's money, right? I value their investment into this business. I value them as people, right? I really want them to be successful. I'm never going to go to a franchisee or anybody in our system and say, well, you did $1 million this year, but you better do two next year.
Right.
No. Like if that person's happy doing $1 million and they're successful and this is what they really are good about, okay.
Yeah.
Now, will I always try to push people to be better? Of course, right? I'll say,
Mhm.
hey, let's try, we can do this, we can do that, but I'm not going to force people to have, set monetary goals that are really there to benefit the franchisor, not the franchisee,
Mhm.
right? I mean, because at the end of the day, and I tell many people this, is all I want is happy franchisees, right? If I have happy franchisees, I'm pretty sure this business will be pretty successful,
Yeah, I
and
agree.
so it's not complicated, right? I mean, yeah, I know we have to make money to have a business. Don't get me wrong, right? But I would much rather have really, really happy people that when I'm getting new franchisees coming in, that I could just say to them, hey, if you want to do, we're going to do a validation call, but hey, I'm going to give you the list of the website. You can just call anybody on there, right? I'm not going to give you the three best,
Mhm.
right? I
Mhm.
want you to talk to anybody and I want you to hear their experience because everybody has a different experience, right? Nobody has the same situation. Their sales doesn't, just because somebody has $3 million in sales doesn't mean they're happy,
Yeah.
right?
No, that's true.
They might hate it,
Right.
but they've been doing it this long, so they just keep doing it, right? And I talked to many franchisees outside of my own business before I started a franchise. I wanted to hear like other franchise owners about how they felt about the franchisor, right? That was really important to me. I wanted to understand, like, do they like this, or is it just a job to them where they just keep doing it even though they're not happy? And I can tell you that over 50% of the people I talked to, and I talked to over 10, that they were very unhappy. Like they didn't even they disliked the franchisor. They said they would the number one thing I heard was, if I could get out of this, I would. Right.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, why? Why does it have to
Why?
be like that?
Yeah.
Like, why does it have to be so? But I can tell you why. Because as the franchisor grows, they start to lose their focus. Their focus goes from having a great business and having great franchisees to saying, we need to generate more money from the franchisees. And it's as simple as that. They might use the word of they're going to create a new service for the franchisee, but what they're really doing is charging the franchisee more money for something that was already being done. Now we're going to, and so that's my problem, is like, I want to keep this simple. The fees and structure that we have now, I hope to have forever, right? I don't want to have to, continually try to, get more money from the franchisees just because they're being more successful, right? The goal of this was to have people be successful. And so, that's really it. I mean, so does that make it, private equity, right? That's a huge thing in our world right now. I
Sure.
see this happening monthly. Somebody gets they get to 100, 70 locations, 80 locations. Oh, they were sold. Oh, they
Hmm.
bought them. Oh, they sold it. I mean, is it tempting? Sure. I have people call me once a month,
Hmm.
are looking, for Richard's painting, right? I'm not ready to do that, and I'm not even thinking about it, right? I can't say, 10 years from now if I'll have the same feeling. I don't know.
Hmm.
Currently, no, I wouldn't. I don't want to. I feel like I've committed to these people, franchisees, that hey, this is what we do, right? And if I just turned around and sold it to somebody else who didn't have the same spirit that I do or we do here, then why did I even start this? Right? Like, why did I even do it? And I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong. If you sold your business
Hmm.
once or twice,
Hmm.
right? What was your thought process? Like when you started to when you sold, like what drove you to do it?
What drove me was to make a difference in the industry and to change the youth sports industry. I just saw that the bar for customer satisfaction was so low that I knew we could do something truly special and different and try to impact as many kids' lives as possible. And I started because I love sports. It was as simple as that. I didn't realize the impact I was going to make on the lives of people. I had no intentions of selling my company. I thought I was going to be running my business for life. And it wasn't until about 15 years in where I realized that ultimately my dream had been fulfilled of building my company to where I thought I could take it. And I had a great team around me that did everything, and I wasn't needed as much anymore. And I kind of saw an opportunity where maybe it's wise to take some chips off the table. That's what motivated me. I didn't even think I was going to sell the company at all. And when I first even entertained selling it, I thought, well, you know what? My wife and I were getting close to 50 years old. We had all of our net worth was in the company. We just kept plowing
Mhm.
our money back in the business. And so it was our decision to kind of take the emotion out of it and say, let's not be stupid here. We have all of our net worth put in back into this company. It's okay to take a little bit off the table. And we did that. And about 2 years later, we had an opportunity to take some more chips off the table. And I thought, well, you know what? This is an opportunity. We can kind of let this ride and grow. And then once we sold majority interest in the company and my dream had been fulfilled of owning this business and taking as far as I did, it was, we got a great opportunity to sell and it was time to move on. I was mentally ready though, Richard, to move on. I think that's what was really where I was at. Like I had taken the company as far as I wanted to take it. And I thought it was time for me and the company to go in two different directions. And that was a big thing, was the identity. I talk about this a
What
lot.
was the hardest part of selling?
The people,
Like,
leaving the people.
that's to me, like, I mean, like, it's easy to talk about these things, right? It's easy to say, oh, well, I'm gonna get offered XYZ money and I'm gonna get my money back. And you can, that's gratifying, right?
Yeah.
Success, you're seeing the fruits of your labor. But where when that moment comes to say, that's not mine anymore, right? Like, you know what I mean?
Well,
How did that affect you? Forget the money.
yeah. Well, I can tell you that this was a process probably 10 years earlier. I got through that identity crisis where me and I9 Sports were one and the same. I separated
Hmm.
myself from that. I realized that in order for the company to grow, I needed, of course, to hire for my weakness. I needed to realize that you give the company what it needs, and sometimes that needs is more than just you. And so as I built a team around me, I was able to separate myself from the company. I realized that me and the company needed two different things. The company exploded because I started to separate my identity from the company. And so to answer your question, the hardest part, the easy answer is hands down, leaving the people who were part of my team, because I adored these people that I saw every day. What did help on the money side is that I did an ESOP initially. So I awarded my employees shares of the company. So they got a chance to reap the benefits when we did sell. That it was an incredible experience that when we did sell, that everyone was rewarded. I think I would have felt the pain would have been even worse though for me had I left and I had not done the ESOP and I just flat out sold to private equity. And yeah, I would have rewarded the employees, but it was just different as an employee owned company. And then to be able to sell it and see them benefit from it was immensely rewarding. And then ultimately, once the company is sold, and I have nothing to do with I9 Sports at all anymore. I'm not involved
Yeah.
in any way. I get to look at it from afar and admire what I did with the company. And it feels gratifying, and the folks that I put in the company in their hands, I'm very fortunate that I put the company in the hands of the people who were running the company before I left. And now it's, moved on to private equity and there's another layer of the onion now. But that's what happens in business, right? We grow, we evolve, we change. And now I get to be the mentor that I never had by doing this podcast.
No, it's great. I mean, look, I've listened to a lot of your shows, and you just started this not that long ago.
Yeah, July
Um,
23 was my first recording.
yeah.
We released the first ones in September of 23. So this has
And
been just magical, magical
what I
nine
what I like
months.
what I like about what you're doing, because many other people in this podcast world that we live in, where everybody has a podcast, is that it's very self-beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these podcasts, even me that I've been on, is a lot of consultants, a lot of people in the industry trying to help themselves while they have people like myself or maybe you on or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
This, yes, while you're creating this audience, it feels like you're really just trying to get to understand the people, the businesses,
Absolutely.
how they came, how they went, where they are, and it's something that can stand on its own. That's why I was really excited to come on, because I really, like the opportunity to really speak, right? Like obviously I don't hold back. I'm not scared. We can do this again another time because I got many other things that I could talk about.
Yes.
But this just feels like it's about the franchise world, right? And
Yeah.
and especially emerging franchises like myself, newer franchises. One of the things that you were speaking about before is what I hope to do is feel like an emerging or a new franchise forever,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, what I mean? I don't ever want to lose that, desire to want to help people, want to, help, grow the business and, like you said, make a difference, right?
Yeah.
Making a difference is probably, gosh, it's to me the greatest feeling ever. Changing their lives is when you sold also, it's just like me watching guys I've seen come work for me where, they're immigrants, many of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can't, didn't, were maybe living in a trailer or didn't have much, and then you see them be able to buy a house and then be able to put their kids through college, buy a brand new car, things that are simple to most people. You can sit there and
Yeah.
say to yourself, wow, you really made a difference in so many people's lives. That's the gratifying part to me.
Oh,
Just
absolutely.
happen just happen to be using painting as the tool, right?
That's
That's
it.
that's
That's
how I
it.
look at it.
Painting is the
So
tool. I've always shared that no matter what we sell, whether product or service based, that is just the vehicle for what we're providing and changing lives for sure. Well,
right.
Richard, this has been amazing. You've shared an entire episode packed with so much wisdom. Before I let you go, I got two things for you. One, if someone was interested in learning more about Richard's painting, where would they go?
The simplest way is just go to richardspainting.net, click on the franchising tab, and you can, get in contact with me directly or
Sweet.
somebody in our team. That's the best way to do it.
Okay.
If you're looking for a painting estimate, same thing. Go to richardspainting.net and check for a location near you, and you get an estimate from one of our great franchisees.
Cool. All right. And like I said, this episode's been packed with so much wisdom. I appreciated what you've shared, but I always finish the podcast with, I call the franchise tip jar, because the franchise community is so generous with sharing info with one another. So if I was an entrepreneur looking to franchise my concept, before I jump in and franchise, is there maybe a piece of advice that you would give somebody or give me before I franchise my business?
First thing is do research. Really understand what franchising is. What does it mean to you? What does it mean to your business? But also open up another location first. Prove that it works.
I like that.
Right? Because many people, I think, start a franchise without ever knowing if it would ever work anywhere else. So I believe starting another location is the best way to signify that it will work without you.
Awesome. Richard, that is fantastic advice. I agree with that wholeheartedly too. I appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks so much, and hope to see you soon.
Hey, we're going to do this again, just FYI. Just
All right. We'll do it.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks, Frank.
Right, see you.
Take care.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.